I see art as an experience for us to observe, but I never felt a long-lasting emotional connection to a piece of work. Don't you think museums often display works in a controlled environment, static, and categorized by time periods? We are invited to look, but never to truly participate. My perspective on this conception changed when I visited the Maxi Museum in Rome and saw the works of Giuseppe Penone's Sculture di Linfa, also known as his sap sculptures. I was told, without any explanation, to take off my shoes and walk over and into the art. Initially, I hesitated, but my curiosity drew me in as I looked into this ritual-like space. The room's simple composition encapsulated my senses. It was the perfect combination of sight, touch, and smell, which formed an intense experience in the gallery where object and time intertwined. The leather scent coming off the walls smelled smoky and warm. The marble beneath my feet felt cold and painful. The layers of resin were solid yet invisible. The air was still, yet it felt oddly heavy. It showed these materials carry their own history. This is what Penone explores. He transforms the traditional gallery into a living space, one which captivates the viewer's physical and emotional selves, which I felt to be raw and honest. Penone's message here is to comment on exploitation and scarcity, exploring the tension between humanity and nature, destruction and creation. The use of natural materials, such as marble, leather, and wood, which we perceive as global and abundant, is confined to the sides of the room. Although it was hollow and relatively spacious, I felt a lingering sense of guilt, as somehow abundance began to feel fragile. I questioned the space. I wondered if these materials really did contain consciousness, and if so, how do we address their identity? The room's silence contrasted with the daily urban noise we live in, and it allowed me a rare opportunity to reflect on our relationship with the Earth, a planet which has existed for millions of years, yet we decenter its collective intelligence and complex roots. It resonates with the concept of misanthropocene, a critique of humanity's self-centered perception of time and progress. The space, though, felt more alive the more I explored it. The natural sensory connections evoked some core memories. The rippling marble beneath me reminded me of reflexology paths that you would find in parks, which stimulate the body through pressure points, reminding me of nature's therapy. The indented leather on the walls evoked this imagery of a forest, and that this showed the body and nature are interrelated. However, as I tried to move and walk around the gallery, I realized the intense pain from underneath my feet wasn't mine. It was actually a symbol of what nature endures under human pressure. According to the United Nations, our global extraction of raw materials is predicted to increase 60% by 2060, already 400% higher since the 1970s. These heavy numbers have been translated into visual imagery to be felt. Penone's works encourages us to look towards organic wisdom, through showing the consequences of the environment when shaped by external forces, us. When I asked my mom how she felt in this room, she didn't get how this was art. To her, art was beauty, symmetry, and decoration. To me, art was a dialogue. It was a relationship between self and space. This difference itself made me wonder if curiosity had a lifespan. Penone's works reactivates our instincts to engage, encouraging us to reclaim vitality and to feel again. I believe curiosity must keep flowing. If it stops, it will harden like the layers of bark and trap us in our familiarity, just like my mom's response. Perhaps his role in art is to soften those layers again. His sculptures are a tribute to art bravura, an anti-capitalist art movement where artists use humble materials to critique commercialized gallery systems. The post-World War II Italian landscape struggled to recover from social, political, and economical instability, which led to rapid industrialization. He disagreed with these materialistic ideals because it showed shifting societal value and an increase in consumption. Within Jane Bennett's Vibrant Matter, she writes that materials, objects, and non-human life all have vitality, their own energy. It challenges anthropocentrism, which is the belief that humans are the center of everything. If Penone's works wants us to feel again, he also wants us to consider the object's feelings too. In Alpine Maritime in 1968, it is a series of photographs which shows Penone interacting with the tree. Here, he presses against it and writes, "The tree growing will remember my contact." It mirrors the idea that matter is not passive, but responsive. Both Bennett and Penone argue the same concept. They argue for the equality between human and non-human organisms, giving a soul to the materials many of us see as lifeless. This framework of this installation reminds us that humans are connected to nature's inherent rhythm, and not above it. Another work here is ID di Pietra in 2010, which Penone places heavy stones on visually fragile bronze tree branches. The permanence of stone contrasting with the delicate appearance of the trees challenges us to rethink what is really natural. His sap sculptures continue this dialogue between weight and delicacy. Here, the floor, made of Carrara marble, a material of power, is humbled and made equal to its surroundings, leather and wood. None of the systems outweigh another, as all materials coexist in deliberate harmony. One point highlighted in the exhibition's audio guide was his engagement between several opposing concepts, which created a unifying message of how they inform one another. The trees are humans, the linfa or sap is blood. The marble is vessels, and the patterns are roots growing between these materials, forming memories. It reminds us that in a fast-paced society, our experiences not only form our own tree, but are interconnected with the trees around us. It forces us to question the emptiness in society, where people lack empathy for our own surroundings, and so we are unable to appreciate nature's true essence. Consider the pollution of the Kok River, which flows from Myanmar into northern Thailand, caused by gold and rare earth mining. Because of this, the image of nature has become a commercial power. Locals describe feeling like strangers in their own home as they are threatened by industrial greed. This is not just environmental damage, but rather emotional alienation from a wider community. The wooden beam carved to store resin in Penone's installation is a metaphor for the river, being both visible and invisible. The wooden beam is visible to the visitors, just like how the river is to its inhabitants. But what we miss out is their core, their soul. The wood is replaced with tree resin, just like the absence of river resources due to its collapse into human control. Nature has been the center of every human being, yet we often overlook its instrumental value. Penone's materials reveal these impressions of animals, humans, and geology, which form the blueprints of the natural world. Through using simplified materials, Penone restores the authenticity by showing the immaterial and material origins forgotten over and painted by many layers of modern culture. However, in our lives today, outside the gallery, our damage is relevant. The room becomes a stage for human aspiration, where we are encouraged to measure progress instead of taking. Forests are cut down, rivers are polluted, and resources are depleting. This is done not out of connection, but out of dominance. It reminds us that moral consciousness must extend beyond ourselves, a quiet manifesto against anthropocentrism. So what if we extended morality and move towards the sentience itself? If marble replicated nature's patterns and the trees growing can remember contact, then maybe the world is not mute, but constantly observing, shifting, listening, and moving in its own rhythm. Nature is described as the primal and most simple idea of vitality, of culture, of sculpture. It is a universal language that asks for empathy. In a world shaped by consumption and disconnection, Penone reminds us that our actions create mutual vulnerability and that we are not truly exempt from destruction. His work is a quiet resistance, prompting the idea that nature is not just a mere resource, but a companion in our shared identity. The space reminds us to slow down, to listen to the materials, to be kind, caring for each other, just as how we should care for one another and ourselves. Thank you.